is sort of like normal professors trying to work a TV in a classroom. Unfortunately, my students see this way too often.
I can do this one. I just thought it was be faster. Okay. So I'd like to just begin with a period of just silent prayer.
Could I introduce you first, because I really want to introduce the topic as being a special thing. Rebecca's well known to all of you here, but I want to sort of take a minute to appreciate the role of the Spirit in landing her today, because today was supposed to be a day that we were going to hear from somebody on workers' rights, and for this or that reason, that didn't work. The timing of that didn't work out, and I asked Rebecca, because I know that she's put that on her, please. Will you put this on yourself while I introduce you? I asked Rebecca because I know that she's somebody that is enthusiastic about Catholic social teaching, and we've been talking about this beforehand. And I asked her what she wanted to present about. She sent me back a lamentably long title that you saw in the email. It was something like 100 words long. But the nut of it was that she wanted to talk about Pope Leo's first apostolic letter, Dilexite. And because of my schedule, I had a chance to read the whole thing on a bus to Montgomery last week. And I just can't say enough enthusiastic things about it. And so I'm very glad that we have Rebecca here, specifically on Catholic World Day for the Poor.
Yeah, exactly. Right. That's what today is.
This letter that dwells on our relationship to the poor, and it couldn't come on a better day or in a better time of the year. So with that,
Sure. Yep. Okay. Yeah, just a moment of silent prayer, if we could. And I'd like to lift up, because one of the things I love the most about the Catholic Church are all the saints we can call upon. So I want to call upon St. Elmer Moore, St. Mary Weber Bain, St. Brenda Curd, my little brother Steve, who was buried here about 4 years ago, and St. Stan Harvey. So I pray for those saints to be here with us as we present and talk today, and I hope that this will be a participatory event. So I'd just like a moment of silence where we lift up to those saints and the other saints of our lives, that they may give us guidance, not just today, but all week. And I wonder, Kathy, if you can help us lead the prayer in case I leave something out of it. But my favorite prayer is, "Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of us, your faithful." Do you know that prayer? Yes. Could you lead? Yeah, can you speak up like loudly and help us say it together?
Can we get our phones out?
It's okay if you miss a little word. But
Well, happy to help.
thank you.
You're welcome. So in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of us, your faithful, and enkindle in us the fire of your love. Send forth your Spirit, and we shall be created, and thou shalt renew the face of the earth.
Amen. It's been a long time since confirmation, hasn't it?
When I was in grade school, that was a prayer I'd say up in my, it was one of my sister's bedrooms. They moved us girls around in our home, and they didn't move the boys around. I don't know exactly why, but that's what they did. So, yeah, my name is Rebecca Ballard DiLoreto, and the Holy Spirit, I think it's the Holy Spirit, and I hope it is, but that gives sort of confirmation. So what I do in this regard, in terms of, well, actually what I do as a lawyer, and then what I do in giving gifts to people, and what I do when I try to speak. And so I want to know, anybody ever heard, who said this? I lead this in my law school class. I have quotes from Dr. Seuss and others. But who said this? I lusted in my heart. Jimmy Carter, you got that. Jimmy Carter said that. And has anybody ever heard the saying, the poor you always have with you? Maybe so. But my mother used to say, there was a prominent person here at Newman Center who said that all the time and used it as a way to say, therefore, she didn't have to do anything else. And my mother was always didn't like that very much. My mom knew poverty well because they lost their house as a part of the world of the Depression, and that was a very hard thing for her growing up. The thing that really actually began me on the topic I want to talk about today is my well, this is sort of like Catholic apologetics. Not that I have any degree in theology at all, but I realize that this is really kind of like that. And the thing that I was struggling with, I realized that in my efforts to serve other people, that it was in a way like Jimmy Carter, that I could say a part of me was involved with judgment, or a part of me was involved with saying that, am I, like one step better than they are? And that if I have that viewpoint when I reach out to do something for another, then I think I'm in error, but I do that. Has anybody, maybe nobody's ever done it. An example for me, I think about war-torn areas of the world, and then women who get pregnant, and then part of what I've said to myself is, well, why in the heck are you getting pregnant in this war-torn area of the world where you can't possibly raise your kid without there being violence and everything else? And that's horrible. I agree it's horrible that I think that, but part of me says that to myself. And I know it's a part of me that was raised, that I know we don't have sex till we get married, but a big part of it for me is I'm not having sex because I am getting my career going before I propagate. So I'm not going to end up in a position that I can't make that happen because my parents gave me so much to do what I do with my life. But anybody else ever had that experience where you think, thank you, Helen, I appreciate that. Okay, so what I want to think about is, how do we go deeper so that we're not there in how we reach out to other people? And this is where I think the Holy Spirit came in. So I saw I had sent 4 topics, to be quite honest, and I won't tell you what they all are, but I'd love to talk on all 4 of them. But Sister Ellen and John determined this one and another one was good. And America, then I happened to see the America magazine come across my screen, and it had the title of Dilexe Te. So, Father, do you know what Dilexe Te means?
Oh, goodness, my Latin is
Well, that's good for you to share that with us. Humility. Well, I think what I looked up today, it says, I have loved you, which I didn't. Is that what it means? I didn't realize. I would not think. I think Dilexe means word or something like that, but would you think that? But that's what the translation said, I have loved you. And so Pope Francis wrote this piece predominantly, at least put the concept. No, but Pope Francis wrote it all, and then Leo put it in a format and published it. That's how I understand my research. Had you looked at it? Oh, thank you. So, and you're a professor too, right? Oh, I told you, that's right. Your husband's a professor. You are a thinking person, me too, yeah. Yeah. So, and we can't get it up here.
I think it is ready to go. So I think if you have it ready to open, it should display.
Oh, okay.
So if you open it on your laptop, it should display on screen.
Okay, good. Just ignore how many emails there are, because this is where I did it. I sent it to one of my mentors in life, this morning, and in order for us to talk about it. Did you get that email this morning?
I copied it in color.
Ah, very good. All right. So they have done infographics for this. There's lots of information on this idea of I have loved you. And I want to talk through it because I think that it helps, thinking through it helps us understand or helps us go through a process that helps us recognize our own poverty more intensely, but not in a negative sense, you know. Anybody here raised Catholic? So here's an example. I was raised Catholic. I went to Christ the King 8 years, then I left the church, and I came back to it in college. But I'd had, at that time in my life, had to do with me seeing enough of he, him, and his, and didn't think there was a she and her involved in the journey. So, but really due to my own sense of poverty, I probably came back to it and lived with it as it is. But anybody ever go through Advent where you had to check off or color in good deeds that you did? Did you all, any of you all ever do that? Where'd you go to CCD, Kevin?
Here, in high school.
In high school. Well, you didn't do that in high school. And you were in California. They didn't make you do that in California. Well, they did at Christ the King. And yeah. And Mrs. Steele was much smarter than that, to be honest. So she wouldn't have pushed you to do that either. And then in Lent, you had to, I don't remember our charts, if we were what we did wrong. I'm not sure, but it was something like that, okay? So, what you gave up, that was it. Thank you, Sister Ellen. Yes. What you gave up, and every day, like give up gum, give up cussing, give up, yes, different things. And I always gave up cussing and coffee. In college, I managed to give up coffee the whole Lent. But,
Rebecca, can I add, the reason I don't stay in for the adult ed is because of the children's program, kindergarten through 12. So I'm in classrooms, because I would love to sit here and be a part of it. But I want you to know, too.
thank you.
We know one another
But-
really well.
But you,
I'm not walking out on you.
but the good thing, Ellen, is that you were here when we needed you. Right?
And I'll be in and out, because I really want to hear this.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
I'll ignore the kids today, so.
Yeah. All right, so what I want to talk about for a bit are 3 infographics that go with DiLoreto, and they would be, I think, excellent tools to use with our young people, Kevin, those in college, those in high school, and Ellen, too. I think that this is really good stuff. And I don't know which copy you have. You have that. Do you have all 3 pages?
Yes.
You do, but you have that. Okay, the first page. So God loves us in spite of our weakness. I wonder if do we think that that's all there is? Is it in spite of our weakness? Is that the best? I mean, I understand that's from Revelations. I don't mean to dispute Revelations, but what do you think? We're his children. So when you look at a little baby, do you think, oh, I love this little baby in spite of their weakness? No. And in fact, their weakness makes us really, it's easier. One of the things Jenny's doing lately is to advertise homelessness for the children. Because some people are going to abandon children, but it's easier to sell. And partly it's easier to sell because we're not judging them, right? So even when we take care of our elderly parents or grandparents, we might have elements of judgment, especially if we were their kids and we lived through different things about them, we may have elements of judgment. But with that little baby, we don't, right?
I just want to tack on to that with an everlasting love.
Yes, yeah. Yeah.
It's always.
It's always. It doesn't end. Yeah. So God says, I have loved you, and then with an everlasting love, and then it's more than even in spite of our weakness, but our weakness is part of what generates the love. And I'll offer this an example. I went and lived with Benedictines in South Dakota after college. Opus Dei was trying to get me to join them, and honestly, that's another story, but instead of doing that to escape kind of that, I went to live with the Benedictine sisters. And Sister Rose Palm said to me, when I was struggling, well, what if I make the wrong choice? Like, I can't figure out, I'm supposed to be a nun, not a nun, get married, what am I supposed to do? And she said, Rebecca, God will love you even more if you make the wrong choice. So I have used that all along my journey. God will love you even more. And I think that's connected with me in this notion of our weakness, because when do we need it? That baby that just left here needs, if that baby doesn't get love, the baby won't survive. Absolutely, right? So anyway, that's what I think, that's one way to look at it. But, and then the next slide, it says, because you guys can't all see it, but Jesus identifies with the smallest of society. So I think about that word identifies. So it isn't that Jesus reaches down and touches the smallest of society, but identifies with. So with whom do we identify? Like UK, football, UK, basketball, I identify, I cheer, I'm part of it, right? I mean, identify is something more than magnanimous care for another. I don't know, what is it? What is it, Chihuahua, when you use that word, identifies? Yes. You see yourself in them. Yeah, you see yourself in them. And so this is our Pope saying this, okay? 2 popes saying this, 2 popes. So we can say it's legitimate Catholicity. What'd you say? It's a trend, yeah. And and then they say, just the pledge to favor the poor is insufficient. The pledge to eliminate structural causes of poverty is insufficient. Instead, we need a whole change of mentality to break the cycle. And then I think, and here's the cycle. And I don't think does it show up on your all's sheet? The cycle? Okay. And my work has taught me this cycle from the time I was in college and I took sociology courses on critical race theory, and it was a long time ago. I graduated college in 1981, so we were studying that in 78 and 79. And what this suggests that this is a part of it, the structural injustice, and it's a part of it to have preferential option for the poor, and then we need to change our mentality. And that's what I need to change in a way, is my mentality, because I'm not all the way conformed to the love of God if I am deciding, I don't know, if I'm imparting judgment when I give, then I'm not entire. I mean, John Grant and I are both lawyers, and you learn discernment and judgment. Did you ever learn that? You never did. I actually knew John quite before he was a lawyer, so I didn't impart that to him either, I guess. But I think so. So this idea of changing our mentality demands that we both look at the question of the humanity, the one-to-one reality of poverty, and the structural situations that create poverty. So what do you all think of that idea? That's how if we want to work towards changing our mentality, why are they both necessary? Yes, what do you think? With the mask, sorry.
Oh, with the mask.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, one thing I've been thinking about lately with the news is this idea of the economy. You'll hear this a lot. The economy is doing this, the economy is doing that. And how it seems to me more and more in my observation, I'm like, whose economy, right? Is this an economy that's actually lifting up and favoring and preferring the poor? Are they going to do better in this economy? Or is somehow, and this goes to the structure, keeping people poor, benefiting other people, is that going to be the way the economy's going to look? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Just something I've been thinking about.
And do you think, too, that when I've listened to that lately that they've been saying it, and it is almost like it's just like the sun rose today. I mean, it is like there's nothing you can do about it. It's out there. The economy's out there. This is what is happening. So you don't, yes, Jennifer.
This is not about the economy, but
Yeah.
one thing that I look at is I kind of say, you're for the grace of God.
Right.
I tell myself, you could have been
Right.
that woman born in Africa.
Right.
You know,
Right.
that lives in a hut and has 8 children and 5 of them died before they're 5.
Right.
You could have been the woman who was, with a child who was born to the addictive mother.
Right.
But I wasn't. For the grace of God, it was not me.
Right.
I had parents who cared, parents who loved me, parents who fought for my education, and that doesn't mean that my soul is any different from the soul of the child that was born to the addicted mother. You know, we're kind of, and I don't know, it doesn't seem fair.
Right.
You know, that some children have to grow up in homes where there's violence and poverty, but that's what gets me through it, is I think I could be that person.
Yeah.
No different than that.
Right. Yes, sir.
I think that in this country, we rely on the government to take care of the poor. And I think that with government budgets and administrations and what have you, there's a shift as these programs are unraveled, as we saw with the budget, with the government shutdown and food, not being delivered on time and things like that, that as these government budgets shrink, I think that the responsibility is going to come back on the people, the generosity of others, and how we reach out to help somebody versus just saying, well, I pay taxes, the government's taking care of it.
Anybody else have another thought on that, John? Yeah.
So you asked about why it's important that both the systematic and the personal be here, right? One reason is that with complex problems, oftentimes we shift our attention back and forth from the systematic to the personal, depending on sort of your personal interests. I was talking to Karen just a minute ago about recycling. That's a good example of a place where personal responsibility has been highlighted to downplay systematic institutional responsibility, and complex questions like this can only be changed if we think about both of them, right? If we ourselves, through the lens of our Christian faith, talk about our obligation personally to help the poor, but at the same time too, we talk about our responsibility through organizations to change systems to promote the possibility of better systematic. I like her now, but
at the same time, I'm a high school teacher. I've been teaching for almost 30 years. There's a frustration I think there's building inside the system, because I just know when I started where I am now, there's large amounts of resources that are being put toward the kids that are at risk, large amounts, and they'll say there's change, but it's so minuscule that it's almost like, is it really happening? And I think there's frustration built on that side where looking for answers to what is, and going back to the government putting so much effort into it, it's just the move, the just slight move trying to break that cycle, which I remember when I first started teaching, that cycle was hammered into our heads. Like, your job as a teacher in a at-risk school is to attempt to break that cycle. You are the person that can do that. Well, it's like you hope you see it, but you don't. I think the frustration is building on that because there's so, like you were saying, there's so many things that are encompassed into this that you feel like you want to be the cog that makes it work. But then you wake up in the morning and you're like, what did I do today? Did I go to sleep, put your head on the pillow? Like, did I do this? Is there something else to change? And it's a long time to be trying to break that cycle. I mean, all the way back to LBJ. So, and trying to do this, I think there's frustration. There's answers that are looking, there are large amount of people they're in different parts of society. And they don't matter what political party, they're still looking for the answers.
Looking for the answers to get us out of this impact of the cycle, systemic cycle of poverty.
Haven't changed minusculely at all. So that's why I think there's frustration.
Say that again.
The percentage of people in poverty.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I was just going to ask if it's too early to touch on the notion of just social indifference.
Yep.
As well. Because I think in your case, proximity, right? Like you see these children.
I can see it. So, I would push back. There's no social indifference where I am, but I'm in the trenches. So.
And I think that's where like modern society, when we talk about systems too, and kind of Pope Leo's touched on this with AI and social media, right? So much of our indifference is driven now, not by malice, but by distraction.
Yes.
And how many of us, since we sat down and felt that like, oh, is my phone in my pocket, or where can my mind go so that I don't have to focus on the hard things? And so I think when you are in the trenches, like, it's really hard not to become distracted. But for those of us who aren't, in modern eras, it's just so hard to remain focused on the fact that concretely, like, these suffering people exist. This isn't like a
Sure.
If suffering happens, right? Like we don't, and for the invisibility, I think we could spend much more time drawing our attention to these issues as opposed to distracting ourselves from these issues.
Yeah, and that's part of what this speaks about too. What's your first name, sir? Chris. So it talks about the culture of accumulation, the illusion of happiness in riches and social success. So, I'm 67, husband's 77. We should be traveling the world, going this and that place. I mean, you get together with friends, what do they talk about? But, that's sort of where's your next trip that are, it might be a distraction from what we're called to. My experience from listening to Jenny talk last week, my experience was so different being raised in the Catholic Church. I was so blessed to have Vatican II hit when I was a first grader. I remember second grade, like Jennifer was speaking of, they had these cutouts of, used to play with paper dolls, and they were people from all over the world. And then in the lecture of the second graders, it was about how if you're born in Africa in a tribe, you don't know Jesus, you're going to hell. And I sat there in second grade and I said, that isn't God, that isn't the God. And this was Sisters of Divine Providence. I said, that isn't the love of God. And I really liked this nun. Her name happened to be Sister Rose too. But somehow they hadn't converted everything, I think, to Vatican II knowledge. But I said to myself, that can't be the way it is. How could God say, I'm going to make sure these people are born over here. They don't have, Catholicity there, so they'll go to hell. And these people over here are born, to moms and dads that have this, like you said, Jennifer, have done all good and treated them. But for me, I was absolutely taught about the preferential option for the poor. My first hero was Thomas à Becket. My mom and dad took me to see the drive-in at, probably, I don't know if it was Winchester Road. I couldn't believe it yet. I was 5 years old. And he was the first guy I fell in love with, and he was my hero. Do you know who Thomas à Becket was? Well, he was a lawyer. He was beheaded by one of the Henrys. It wasn't Henry VIII. It was, Henry II, maybe? And it had to do with what he tried to tell the king about the truth and what happened to him. Do I have that right? Historians? I don't know, any historians here. But that's how. But therefore, Chris, my life my siblings say, well, I think that you were somehow just born with that conscience in the family or something of eight of us. I don't know. But I think that's so true. I think we need to be asking ourselves, do I spend my time with my friends talking about where I'm going on, vacation next, or do I ever interject maybe something else? Think about, what is the gentleman's name who was killed in the plane crash and ran Habitat for Humanity? Pat. Last name was? Stewart. Smith, I think, Smith. And his lovely wife is remembered. But, you think about him and what he did with his life, right? What he did on his vacations. I mean, that's something, to me, he's an example. He's one of those, saints among us. So we have to think about that. And now I want to try to take us.
From here that
Yes.
From
Yes.
DiLoreto
Yes.
that
Yes. Yes.
So he says, in fact, the illusion of happiness derived from a comfortable life pushes many people toward a vision of life centered on the accumulation of wealth and social success at all costs, even at the expense of others, and by taking advantage of unjust social ideals and political economic systems that favor the strongest. We've been talking about this in our men's group on Saturday mornings a lot. One of the sort of sad side effects of American pluralism is that the only thing that we're left that we agree about is, well, I guess capitalism is right. And if our doctrine is capitalism, it's founded on the idea that better lives are lives that are materially enriched. And whether or not we admit it, to some large degree, we're all formed by this, and we have real trouble pushing back against it.
Can you read just the first part of that again, just a little more slowly? So.
In fact, the illusion of happiness derived from a comfortable life pushes many people towards a vision of life centered on the accumulation of wealth and social success at all costs.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Something here, just because Africa has come up a couple of times, I just want to interject and say,
Thank you, Chris.
I had the honor and the experience of studying abroad in Ghana, in West Africa, and one thing I was surprised by is how rich people's lives are there. I mean, truly, the sense of community, the sense of culture, and the sense of history, that richness far exceeds my own experience growing up in the United States. It's a different kind of richness is what I'm trying to say. You know, it's not built on what car do you drive, what house do you have. Instead, it's how many friends do you have? How big is your family? Can you support that family? What are your connections in society? Do people trust you? Do you have honor? I don't know, it's just a different kind of value system that I really came to appreciate.
And I think there are sacrifices one makes when one chooses to live this out. A part of me would say I shouldn't have had kids because, they went to Lexington Catholic and the most we had was a broken down car my oldest boy drove, and that was it, And all the other cars in the parking lot were very nice. Maybe not everybody that was here that went there, but I can tell you that most of them were. So, and then if you propagate and have children, then your children have to experience your choices that way, which can be a challenge in certain ways. But then again, what are you teaching them if you fail to do that? So this has us recognize the tradition of the Catholic Church, and of course everybody, you understand that, how much we've reached out to the poor as a church. We've been educators of the poor. Some have gone to Catholic high schools that are run by, religious organizations, our hospitals. And then, everybody knows Mother Teresa alongside the least, how we've reached out. Now, they don't name the Dorothy Day. She also, along with Oscar Romero, were, I guess, my two heroes of the Catholic Church. And so that was a role model for Jenny, as she spoke of last week. But she was pretty remarkable. And then, and I think, again, we all kind of understand that be where we stand. But so the challenge in the light of the social doctrine of the church from these different documents, Rerum Novarum, to, I don't know, Apparecida, do you? I don't know what that is. Do you know, John? Anybody here know? Kevin, do you know what that document is? Apparecida or Apparecida? No. Yeah, okay. Somebody can talk on it in a few weeks or something. But that's the social doctrine of the church, and it's deepened a more preferential option for the poor. And as you said, it's a trend. We even have four popes, yeah, because there's three here listed: John Paul II, Benedict the 16th, and Francis all recognized it, our obligation. And this is what I find real interesting to think about, the parable of the Good Samaritan, the indifference, the thrown away, the abandonment. I've thought about this because we have, our kids are gone, and we have a bedroom on our first floor, and I think about, I ought to have somebody live there, right? And I think about the story of the Good Samaritan, and he didn't put the guy on the side of the road, he didn't put him up at, I don't mean to be pejorative, but a lot of my criminal cases grow out of Versailles Road and some of the motels out there. He didn't put him up at one of those motels. He put him up at a place where he knew the innkeeper and said, take care of him, give him everything he needs. And that's it, for me, that's like, okay, that calls into question, how do I look at things? My career path is one that it's important that I have boundaries, and therefore I don't invite my clients into my home. And I represent a lot of people charged with the death penalty or other things, so that would probably not, I can't do that anyway. Most of them are incarcerated. But I do think there's this idea of, do we consider ourselves equal people on the journey to God? And a couple weeks ago, I was in the juvenile detention center. I represent a youth there who's charged with murder. And his life, he was only 16, but he's not getting out, maybe ever, maybe for a long time. So I talked to him about prayer. At first I asked him, where's his view? I don't impose Christianity on people. I'm not into that. It's unethical for me to do that for my clients. I wouldn't do it. But if that's where they're at, or whatever they're at, I talked to him about prayer, because his life can be a life of prayer for the next 40 years or whatever he's incarcerated for. And it could make a big difference in a lot of other people's lives. So I talked to him about the kids in Gaza and his ability to pray for those people. And I don't know, you probably, sir, you're the teacher, you probably don't talk about God at all with your students. You aren't allowed to, right? Please?
I phrase it in a kind of a different way.
Yeah, you try to get it.
We get into, I teach AP World History, so therefore we get into these little moments.
Yeah.
And I just turn to the kids and say, this is for the biblical scholars. I don't name them Christians, I don't name them biblical scholars. I also have Muslims, and I say, well, those of you that know the Quran backwards and forwards, and that type of thing. So I kind of bring it in a sideways. And the kids figure out where my knowledge is. So when I use examples, they're like, he knows.
Yeah.
He's a Christian.
Yeah, but and the reason I'm saying this is I think that, for me at least, is part of my sense of the journey of history. So let me restate that. The journey of trying to make sure that my mentality is conformed, so that when I help others, I am not doing it from a point of superiority to inferiority. And you all are familiar with the experience of immersion experience. It used to be something that was done a lot in the 70s. So I worked for the Sioux YMCA. They had their own, the chiefs ran that in South Dakota. And part of their experience was immersion. They dropped me in the middle of the night at Red Scaffold Reservation, and I spent several weeks there. It was interesting, and I learned tons, and I learned a lot, I think. But Jenny did the same thing, Jenny and Judy, when they started Catholic Action Center, and they had an immersion experience, and I was down oh, I'm so sorry. I was down there at the 5th Street, as she spoke of last week, or 5th Avenue, whichever it is, and I sat there with this woman, an African-American woman who was homeless, and she was one of the first to integrate Lafayette High School. And I was like stunned, to be with her and her story. And she lived out near the airport, and they would go pick them up at like 5 a.m. and bring them to school, because of course they couldn't put on the bus white kids and black kids. So the black kids got picked up way before the whites, and I didn't know that. And I'm a person who has studied a lot about racial prejudice, bias, systemic injustice, and I didn't know it. And so here she was, and for me it was such a gift. Here I am with her, and what a brave woman, little kid, and had to sit in the dark at, Lafayette waiting for the white kids to get there before all the lights would go on and class could start. Anybody ever had that experience, an immersion experience, or, where you were present with another whom you might have thought that, you're superior? Maybe none of y'all felt that way, but have you ever had that experience? You thought you were somehow superior, and then you found, wow, that just isn't the case. Anybody can share something so I don't feel so alone up here? You have, Kevin. But think about Kevin is, Kevin doesn't think of himself ever as superior. You don't. That's what I've loved about Kevin, right? Kevin reaches out to people, and he doesn't go around saying, well, in order for me to feel decent, I need to think I'm one up. You don't do that.
Yeah, I think Mother Teresa says, find your Calcutta in your own area. So within the United States, You know, I've been to the Navajo Indian Reservation, to the Catholic mission churches. So the Franciscans have been there for 400 years. So a longer amount of time than the place has been in the United States. So we are immersed. We're not just coming in. We're with a parish where Jesus is painted behind the altar. Jesus looks like a Navajo. And so we're part of it for a spring break. And so you are immersed, you find out their stories, who are their holy people, what was their story about their own Trail of Tears. But they're part of the United States. I mean, New Mexico has 23 Native American reservations in this one state. And so that's like, I've been living in the United States all my life. I was born in Phoenix, and I didn't know that, you know. So anyway, the immersion experience is a trend that's been going on for a while, rather than just go build a house, which is also good. I mean, that's Jimmy Carter habitat. But the mission is accompaniment when you're immersion. So it's both and. You know, the Catholic Church is a both and. Build a house or feed the poor, but also ask why are they poor. So that famous archbishop down in Brazil, Camara, he said, I feed the poor and they call me a saint. I ask why they are poor and they call me a communist. And so that's Dom Helder Camara. He's a famous Catholic bishop that passed away. Anyway, that's just a couple of reflections. And within the United States, we have plenty of experiences to be, you know, Ghana, excellent, and so is all over the world. But we also have the world in the United States.
And so I think part of what you've done with taking students on that kind of experience is to help them see that. By experiencing it, they begin to think about it, and they understand a little more about the systemic injustice, and they do more of a step towards identification. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, these are my brothers and sisters, citizens. They're all American citizens. Yeah. They've been there, 11 generations, a lot longer than my ancestors have been Americans. So it's a.
When I was in Nicaragua, there were two nuns, and they said, "Oh, we didn't go into the convent to teach the rich," and so they went to live in this barrio outside Delta, and they got the people organised. They asked them what they wanted, and so the first thing was you couldn't get out in and out of the barrio when it rained, and so the guys organised and borrowed a lorry and put down gravel on the streets. They did various things. So they kept their teaching jobs, so they'd have money, but they lived with the people and found out what the people wanted and helped them to organise so they could get it.
Uh-huh. And so so that's what I was going to say, I think, is one more step. So you recognize the structural injustice, you go and have them present so that they see it one-on-one, but then you make a step towards living their life, just like Jesus lived our life. You make a step towards living their life. So one of the things I've shifted in my legal practice that's been going on for 40 years now is that I've done this for maybe 6 years. I bring in my client's family. They are a part of the defense. Sometimes I have them sign confidentiality agreements. And I do it because I've got to connect with them. They know their story much better than I do. And I'm about... It involves the whole family. And, what you mentioned about where we spend our money and that the government can't fix things. I think that a challenge exists there, though, because when there are children left abandoned, is it only the job of charity organizations, or does our government have an obligation? And historically, we've thought they did. I know Linda's had a history of helping DCBS at times, the Department for Community-Based Services, social workers at times. You know, I have a child I'm representing now that the state's trying to kill. He's 23. When he was in probably 30 different foster home placements. He was born to a 15-year-old mom. She used to prostitute herself to make money and hide him in the closet. He was taken at 5 and put in place after place after place. And I can't help but see we're using state resources to try to execute him. And we did a miserable job with state resources to protect him when he was so vulnerable. And it impacted his life, and it made it unsafe for another human being. But in order for me to really represent him, I have to immerse myself in his world at different levels to understand it. It's an interesting and challenging journey. And it calls more out of us today, I think, that might be challenging. So the question here is, where's the church going today? Mercy cannot wait. We are called to give, to touch the suffering flesh of the poor, building a church that only knows how to love and accompany the most fragile. So this is Pope Leo, a church that does not place limits on love, that knows no enemies to fight, but only men and women to love, is the church that the world needs today. It's a challenge to say you don't place any limits on love, right? I mean, you have to take care of oneself. I don't know. So you're a therapist, aren't you, sort of, or a spiritual director? What do you think of that statement, placing no limits on love?
I think that most people cannot fathom that.
Yeah.
I mean, we're really being asked to look at our whole way of being church. You know, the synod, which is my big thing, is a really big piece of that, to learn how to listen, not from your head, but from your heart. And I think that's a really big challenge.
Yeah.
So, I mean, love really is, we say one thing, but we do another, and I think that's the hypocrisy, you know?
Yeah. Anybody else have thoughts on that, on what Leo is saying there? Yes, Linda.
Yesterday I went to the Underground Railroad thing in Cincinnati, and I look at the way the laws are made to keep the slaves, you know, all shackled in, I mean, awful conditions, cruelty. A lot of that cruelty is still going on today. You know, that brutality of people that are seen as not as animals.
So I want to leave you with another quote. And this can connect, I think, with what some folks here have said. So another, I guess a third hero of mine in the Catholic tradition was Oscar Romero. And Oscar Romero said, or at least he's attributed, I've also heard others said it, but they put it mostly with him. We cannot do everything. This is an end of his quote. It's a wonderful prayer he had. And there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something and to do it very well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for God's grace to enter and do the rest. So I think that we each just have to say to her, like, you can be overwhelming. There, we just say to ourselves, well, what does this prompt me? What does what Pope Francis and Pope Leo are saying here prompt me to do? And like you said, Kevin, we can look at our own world. Mother Teresa said, look where you're planted. Is that sort of what she said? And, we don't have to go far away to make that happen, but we just think about it. So thank you.
Before we thank Rebecca, I just want to make a suggestion to everybody. So I gave you the handouts that Rebecca suggested. In addition, I printed out the first chapter, little short chapter, and I handed that out to you too, because I want to encourage you that if you're looking for something to do in observance of Advent this year, that you just read the entire letter. It took me about an hour and a half, and that first chapter, if it doesn't light you on fire, I don't know what will. Let me read you just one sentence from the chapter I gave you. Pope Leo, this is in his voice. He says, I am convinced that the preferential choice for the poor is a source of extraordinary renewal both for the church and for society. If we can only set ourselves free of our self-centeredness and open up our ears to everyone. So read that whole chapter. It's two pages front and back. Give everybody a chance
Thank you all. It's great to be with you.
Big topic.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So, Chris, what kind of work do you do?
What's that?
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a physician and teacher, so I work at UK.
I thought. What kind of doctor are you?
Primary care. Yeah,
In
so-
all areas. Okay.
So kids and adults. Yeah.
Okay.
Can't be pregnant.
Yeah.
I will take one person at a time. But then I do a lot of teaching too. So.
Well, that's good. That's great. I am for a couple of years. We ran a legal clinic connected with pediatrics over there. So yeah. So I was the lawyer doing that work. Yeah. Yep.